Whites now more likely to die from COVID than blacks. Why the pandemic shifted. An article by the Washington Post. All right, we're starting to see more headlines like this talking about why certain demographics are succumbing to COVID more than others. And I think that this really ties into a lot of conspiracies that were floating out there. I want to start by talking about how BLM tricked people into being racially eugenicists. Now, I understand that that seems like a heavy implication, but follow my logic here. The Black Lives Matter movement was big on trying to draw attention to minority populations in terms of saying we need to prioritize them in terms of resources. We need to kind of just be vague with that. Just communities need resources. They need money, they need food access, they need resources. They just kind of kept in generalities, right? So then when this COVID-19 came, I do feel like there was a very strong, already in the air urge to make sure that these minority communities don't get left behind and they get prioritized when we are trying to make sure everyone gets vaccinated. So that was something that I saw as like a strong red flag immediately, thinking that, for one, the Black community does not have a strong history with trusting the government. They're not quick to want to take any kind of experimental government things. There's an old, I guess it's like a horror story, and it's like there's a knock on your door and it's someone saying, I'm here from the government and I want to help. Beware of that sort of situation. That's the thing. Most people know that. So you saw this, and this is what got a lot of criticism, was the morally superior people pushing this vaccine. I got the vax. Oh yeah, are you vaccinated? Their profile picture, everything had it, right? There was like such a morality that came with it. So those same kind of virtue signaling people, here's the thing, whether you like it or not, like this country is majority white. And so the thing is, like, having that kind of white demographic under your spell, that's really important to have. As much as they never feel the need to appeal to white people, they're always just shitting on them. They're always just kind of talking about how, like, they're bad. Like, your white guilt should push you down. Like, they never really try to appeal to that, because I think they just know if we appeal to the cool kids, like the black kids and, like, you know, the cool Latinos, not all of them, because we're going to be really selective about, you know, who we handpick to be like our spokespeople and whatnot. So it's very kind of like calculated. You can feel it. But that was my big, I just saw how obvious that was from the beginning, that they were setting a stage to make it so you would see, oh, these poor communities, we need to make sure they get vaccinated first and foremost. Oh, we didn't get them the food that we were talking about, the resources for their schools. The water is still filthy in Flint, Michigan. Okay, I'm just trying to make sure like what we're prioritizing here. But we were making sure everybody, all the kids had masks, everybody was getting COVID tests. Where do you think we got all those? Who do you think had all that ready? Do you realize the materials that go into every single one of those tests? And this was a global thing, so someone had to be supplying that for the world, right? And let's say there's more than one supplier, yeah? It's still a global thing that just kind of popped up out of nowhere, and this market it was crazy. I'm sure most of us remember somebody who was selling masks when it started. They saw there was like a huge market opened up with this. So fear can lead to profit in that way. But back to what I was saying, where I do believe that the Black community, from what I know, and I say that just from my own human interaction, I don't like to sit back and like, oh, I studied the concept of the black man. Like, I feel like that's really ignorant. Like, if you want to know people, you got to go talk to people. You got to meet people. You got to live amongst people, right? And so that's how I've always been ever since I could be. And what I have gathered from that is that just, for one, because of the moral superiority aspect that comes with it, most Black people do not want to be loud and proud about the fact that they're unvaccinated. They don't want to give people a reason to socially ostracize them. But at the same time, a lot of Black people also come from a faith background. And so the thing is, faith is kind of what I think. If I wasn't raised religious, I wouldn't have like the spiritual core that kind of told me it's like, this isn't right. This doesn't sit right. Like, whatever God I do believe in would not make the cure to a man-made and I believe this. This is my non-medical, I don't care, this is my opinion, like it was a man-made thing. I do not believe that God would create the cure in the form of like, you're gonna have to get real clever with this. We're gonna have to synthesize ingredients. We're gonna have to take a little bit of an egg. We're gonna have to take a little bit of like some, now this is the, put a disclaimer because I don't know what the hell I'm talking about with this part. I'm like some monkey brain, some this, some that. Like, I do know there was something like fetal cell tissue, but it's just, I'm not saying which one. I guess I can throw the word alleged in here, sprinkle it in wherever it's appropriate, I suppose. But like, I saw the ingredient list, even though that was impossible to track down for the longest time at the beginning. Notice this is like the time when people were still real hyped up, and it's like, oh, black people are being killed in the street. We really need to prioritize helping them. Are you guys doing anything about that? No, we are actually defunding the police in communities that really could use it, because here's the thing. Black people also live in communities that benefit from being policed. Like, people like to lay their head on their pillow knowing that their community's safe, that someone's not gonna break in their window. Like, everyone likes that. It's not racially specific. And like throughout like every culture, like having some form of law enforcement is necessary for people to not be like some uncivilized place. Like, why would you choose to live somewhere that's like, well, I notoriously hate Portland. I've never even been there, but from everything I've seen and everyone I've met from there who has left there, there's no reason to. So it's like, why would you choose to move to a situation that is lawless like that if you're hoping to be a law-abiding citizen? Like, if you're on the lam, like, yeah, that's like a great place to be. But I mean, like, if you want like your kids to get a good education and stuff, like, yeah, you don't move to places that are lawless. They're like, oh, if my kid got abducted, if my kid got hit by a car, like, would anyone even care? Like, that's not a good feeling. That's very scary to know you're at work all day. Hopefully, my kid, best of luck to you. I gotta go work so you can afford to eat, but not a lot of adults looking out for you. Like, that's just a very scary thought. So that is my personal perspective, was that I think that a lot of these, I guess I'd say well-intentioned white people, but a lot of them were very quick to shit on other white people as soon as they did something that they, and like, for being white. That was the problem I have, is very much like, it's white people being like, oh, you white ass, blah, blah, blah. And it's so irrelevant if we're both white, for one. Two, you're using white as it's like an insult, and it's like, again, you are white. So if you're mad about being white, can't tell you to take your skin off or anything, but like, I guess, what, hit the tanning bed? Like, if you're so mad about it, like, just do the whole transracial thing and like stop being white if that's who you are. Like, I don't know, if you're so mad about it, yeah, trans race your way out of here. Just like, whoop, 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 butterfly metamorphosis. Just, I was doing the Napoleon Dynamite. I swear, everyone wants everything to be a dog whistle. I'm like, these are not hate signs. I just talk with my hands because that's who I am. I'm keeping them down here so you don't see them too much, but they're in the sunshine. I'm not, this is not the color of my hands. All right, see, that's the ADD. Back to the story at hand here. This was the whites now more likely to die from COVID than blacks, why the pandemic shifted. I find that to be an interesting narrative of how to not like put guilt on like the medical industry in any way. They're like, these people are dying. It's curious why, and it's like, did you draw a correlation to the fact that like most of these people are vaccinated, double vaccinated, triple vaccinated? The president is not quadruple, he is quintuple vaccinated. Like, that was a joke. Like, that was a hyperbolic joke we were telling. It was like, are you 5 times vaxxed? And like that was dumb. That was an old boomer joke, and it became reality. And it's just so bizarre to me that like people, because we were okay with step 1, step 2 pushed forward, people weren't resisting enough. And I'm wondering what step enough people will just say like, no. I think it happened a while ago, but I am of the opinion that we are on the hook to China. I think financially, like most countries, like we are indebted to China because they produce things. They actually make physical goods that other people want. And so that's as much as like I don't believe in like the way that they treat their workforce, they are very productive as an economy. And so I am of the belief that at a certain point, you pay the piper. You can't just accrue billions and trillions and quadrillions of debt. Like, that's just not an option from people who Or I mean, I suppose it is, but the thing is, the second somebody says like, hey, time to pay up, what are you gonna do? And so I do believe that. I think a lot of us had to buy all these tests. I think a lot of us had to buy this, the PPE, had to buy a lot of this stuff. And I know that it was made in China, and I think that they benefited heavily from that. Their economy boomed as a result of it. And I don't believe that your average person in China became more rich as a result. So I do believe this was orchestrated, and I do believe that certain members of certain governments knew about it, certainly. And we're starting to see new things about this. An event called Event 201. I'm not super well informed on that. I will just say like that sort of thing is coming out, and seems just weeks before there was the announcement about the Wuhan lab. And I mean, the pieces will come out. When you think of today, how there are all those ads for like, if you use Roundup weed killer and you now have leukemia and this sort of thing. Like they didn't say that at the beginning. Time just had to let that lapse. Like some people got leukemia and they were like, no, like let's just not worry about it right now. You can't say that was us. There's too many other variables. Until enough people came forward and they were like, all right, we have enough data now. Like, I guess, I'm sorry, you had to be a statistic. You did, but like, we couldn't take accountability until we knew legally we had to. And that means scientifically, without a doubt, that we prove that it is our liability. And so I think that's the case with COVID. They can just, under all the laws that they were making around it, where they're kind of just like free to do what they want to do in terms of like, you can't sue them as a result of vaccine related injury, and just the way that they called it a vaccine, when it didn't fit my science class definition of a vaccine. My science class definition of a vaccine was they took a small portion of a dead virus, they put it in some medium. I don't know if the medium was supposed to like contain the virus. All I know is they explained it like a dead virus now goes into your body, like an old Western town. They put up a wanted poster. If anybody sees this guy or anyone who looks like him, kill him on sight. And that's what it says. And it's like, now everyone in the body knows, like, we're looking out for that virus. We've seen him. We got to like do an autopsy. We took him apart. We understand how he works. We know his weaknesses. We'll get him if he gets here. Like, that's what a vaccine was supposed to do. So this idea that there was like this weird synthesized multi-crazy ingredient thing, like, just to me, there were so many red flags just immediately. Like, and I'm a suspicious type, but like, I don't know how other people were so quick to, I mean, I say that, but I actually know the psychology behind it, because I think a lot of people were scared that they weren't making the right decision. So they wanted to kind of like commiserate. So they were like, look, if I die of this, like, I want to make sure all my loved ones are the same as me. So the thing is, if I got vaccinated, I'm getting everybody vaccinated. If I feel I got tricked, I just have to commit to the lie. But we're seeing the people now on booster number 3, and they're saying, they're like, I got played. And here's the thing, no shame in saying that. Like, if the people you trusted misled you, that's not like a ha ha ha. That's like a, I'm sorry for you. I hope that you can do what you can to retain your health, because I personally, I wouldn't subject myself to that. I don't do it as I'm better than anyone. I feel fortunate that the information I took in, the experiences I had in my life, made me skeptical enough to be like, I don't think so. Best case, I can wait this out. I got COVID early on. I thought it was influenza B or something, because I'm like, why am I getting my ass kicked like this? This was 2 weeks to the day, 14 days, just crippling in bed, like, just, I'm telling you, I couldn't get up to do anything but go to the bathroom. And it was just like, am I gonna die? Like, I don't have enough body weight to be losing weight. Like, this is horrible. And then it just, when it was over, it was over. And I know it was bad, but it was not, hindsight, I was more dramatic because I didn't know when it would end. So that was the thing, when they were telling people 2 weeks, I was like, okay, that makes sense though. And if you know there's a definitive endpoint, and you can just kind of like, you can really like focus on somebody for 2 weeks, whatever, like, this is something totally treatable. And I think for most people it absolutely was. What happened was the people got complications as a result. I get that. My older brother, he had leukemia as a kid. This is not the Roundup story. I'll just say he had leukemia as a kid. He had to have chemotherapy, and this is in the 90s. And so the thing is, it's like they didn't realize the results of the chemotherapy might themselves do damage to the body in a way that was unforeseen, as was the case with him. So the thing is, I'm like, I have a feeling, even if they think they got this, they didn't solve they're messing up the system. Same thing, we thought we solved birth control, and then it's like, what's with all this breast cancer? And I'm not gonna keep drawing all these correlations here. I'm just saying, like, I think that your body is a finite area. Like, things either enter or exit it. And if you start to feel better or worse after something enters or exits you, you should be able to make a conclusion about that. To me, that's science. Just following people who call themselves a scientist or who wear lab coats and stuff, like, who seem like they talk down to you, does not make them a scientist. People know about the authority effect. They know that putting them on a pedestal means, like, if I say this with this consternation and everything, people will believe me, and you gotta be real careful. That's why being skeptical is a good idea. That's why it's like, I think a lot more, I don't know. I just think the minority communities know, like, a lot of times they are being used, like, as a collective token. I saw it all the time during the, 2016 election? Hillary versus Trump? Whatever Hillary versus Trump was, whenever that was, right? When everyone's like, female president, and it didn't happen. It was just so funny because I lived in Chicago, and she was doing, in Boys Town, she had her advertisement, like, you know, Hillary, and it was like with rainbow letters or something like that, and it was just super obvious. Like, it's just like, this is for you guys. And then I lived further up north, closer to like Spanish speaking neighborhoods, so then I saw like the billboards in Spanish, and I was just like, she knows her demographics that she thinks she can get. All she's got to do is just remind them, spend the money to like use her name, be like, it's the blue one, I'm the blue candidate, blue means the one you vote for. And like, I think people just, when you get used as that and you get told like, this is how you're supposed to believe, everybody chop extras in the back, like, that's, you start to develop your own sense of skepticism. So it's the people who kind of just got along to get along that didn't realize until way too long. So a healthy dose of skepticism, good for you. And I realize I made a very strong claim talking about how it leads to eugenicism, but I will say I do believe that inadvertently what that pressure did was, I do believe that some of the white people that were trying to advocate for minorities, and I don't like to use the term people of color because it is just colored people, but mixed up. Person of color, colored people. Like, that's the exact same thing. So calling people of color is just saying, oh, you non-whites. And to me, I'm like, are those the teams? Because I don't want that to be the teams. I don't like those teams. I don't like I don't feel like that's accurate. I don't feel like that's where the allegiance is. Like, none of that is great. And also, I don't like being told I'm Irish. I'm Scottish. I don't know. Please don't blame me for the problems of Britain. Like, I don't want to be on teams. Not like that. I meet cool people of all different backgrounds. I got so much to learn from all different types of people. I would hate to miss out because it's like your team and my team are beefing and we can't. And Romeo and Juliet and all that type stuff. Like, it wouldn't play out as romantic. Wait, they die at the end. Yeah, it'd play out just like that, probably. It'd play out exactly like Romeo and Juliet. And so if you want to stick around for more synopsis of middle school thing, no. Back to my point, though, that I was making was that I do think that those people inadvertently kind of pushed communities that they were saying they were trying to take care of. I think that they kind of pushed them to then be subject to a trial that they themselves maybe were doing. I don't believe it was mostly people who were like, I don't think it was the unvaccinated saying like, oh, minorities should get it though. Not us, but them. Like, that didn't happen. So it actually was the vaccinated pushing it onto minority communities. So as much as that seems like a hard reality, it's the reality. And now you're seeing it's actually the white people dying from COVID. So sad correlation there. I don't want anybody to die of something that was completely unnecessary like this, but do what you can to be informed and realize this is just a blip on your timeline, and that during your life, like, the chances of something like this happening again are higher than you think. History repeats itself. Pay attention, watch the patterns, and ask who stands to gain money from this. Because that is the most important question that keeps the world running around. All right, thank you for listening. I realize this was a long one. I realize I was long-winded. Thanks.